What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my 2024 ACC football preseason power rankings for the 2024 college football season. Yesterday I did the Big 12, and then a couple days ago did the Big 10, and then on Tuesday I did the SEC, of course. So this is our last Power 4 preseason power ranking video. And again, I'm going to try to do every single week by week of power rankings here for all the Power 4 conferences. Going to do the SEC and the Big 10 on Tuesdays, and then on Thursdays I'll probably do the ACC and the Big 12. So that's how the season is going to work. But now we're going to give you my ACC power rankings here for the preseason. Again, this is based off of my preseason, predictions, and also my preseason expectations here for this conference. And then also, like I said, we pretty much are going to give you power rankings week by week. Again, we'll try to do the best we can of that. And of course, we're going to start here from the bottom and work our way to the top here in these power rankings. And we actually do have an ACC game coming up tomorrow. Of course, college football begins tomorrow. First up, we got Florida State and Georgia Tech in the conference and everything. That game, of course, is going to be Dublin, Ireland. So we'll talk about that game once we get into those two teams. But let's go ahead and get in my power rankings here for the ACC for the preseason. And again, we'll start here from the bottom and work our way to the top. So starting here at number 17, that's going to be the Duke Blue Devils. A lot of question marks here for the Blue Devils this year in 2024. Of course, the last couple years, Duke actually was really good and they were heading in the right direction. Could be like a dark horse team in this conference, but Mike Elko, of course, takes the Texas A&M job. Now they got a new head coach this year and a new coaching staff overall. So again, just a lot of concerns and a lot of question marks here for the Blue Devils. That's the reason why I got them here at number 17 in these preseason power rankings. It's going to be really hard to tell how good this Duke team is going to be after a really good last couple years with Mike Elko. Again, Mike Elko is going to be dearly missed, and again, they lost so many players from last year, including quarterback, Ryan Leonard and everything. They do have a transfer quarterback coming in from the transfer portal. Forgot his name, but I think he'll do pretty good for them at Duke. But again, I got this team as the worst team in the ACC as of right now. I didn't have Duke, back in month of January and also in the spring as the worst team in this conference, but now when I look at their schedule and also just their overall roster, it's just not really there for them. It's not really as good as the rosters that they were in the last couple years. So again, I got the Blue Devils here at number 17. Number 16 is Stanford, a newcomer, of course, coming over from the Pac-12. How good is Stanford going to be in this conference? I mean, that's obviously going to be a big question mark there. The talent's just not there for this team either. Kind of like similar to Duke. It's a second-year head coach here for this Stanford team, so they may be a little bit better going into this conference, and maybe also with a second-year head coach. They can probably have a better season, but again, when I look at that schedule, it's very tough. And again, not a lot of talent here on this Stanford team. I mean, they do got one good wide receiver. I mean, that's pretty much it as far as Stanford has and everything. Again, both sides of the football, I think, are going to be a really big concern here for this team, and just so many question marks on both sides of the football as well. You look at their non-conference schedule, they got to play TCU at the beginning of the season. Of course, that game going to be next Friday, so we'll see what this Stanford team looks like in that game. If somehow Stanford can pull off a win, remember, they get that game at home at least, and it's also a late game there for TCU to travel out west and everything. And if somehow Stanford can pull off the win, I think Stanford might have a chance to win one or two games in this conference. So again, Stanford here at number 16, again, just because of the roster and also just a lot of question marks here for this team overall. So they're number 16 here, my preseason power rankings. Moving on to number 15, that's going to be Virginia. Virginia comes in here at number 15. I know a lot of people saying that Virginia is going to be a lot better this year. I think they will be, but the question is, are they going to be good enough? I think they will be a little bit good. I don't think this team makes it to a bowl game, though. When I look at that schedule, it's pretty tough as they go into the rest of the year. They got to play Clemson on the schedule this season. They also got a non-conference game against Maryland. Let's say if they beat Maryland, I think Virginia might have a chance to make it to a bowl game this year, but I don't really know. I mean, the schedule's pretty tough in the conference, but with Virginia, what they did last year, we saw a little bit of competitiveness from this team. I think, the program is now heading in the right direction? No, they don't really have a talented roster, but they do have a lot of experience coming back on both sides of the football, especially on the offense. I think the offense will be pretty good for them. The defense could be a little bit solid, but again, it's really just about the roster here for Virginia. And again, it's also more about that schedule. If they can make it to a bowl game, this Virginia team is definitely heading in the right direction. But if they can go 5-7 at best, I think this Virginia team makes it to a bowl game in 2025. But we'll see what they look like this year as they'll be playing next weekend. So I got Virginia here at number 15. Number 14 is Boston College. First-year head coach for this team. Boston College, I think, will be a little bit solid. They do have a decent amount of players, still on the roster that, of course, came back from last year. They didn't really lose a whole lot, to be honest, but I think Boston College probably can make it to a bowl game this year. But they have a tough non-conference schedule. They got to play Michigan State out of the Big Ten, and they got to play Missouri on the road out of the SEC. I think those two non-conference games will really tell a whole lot about this Boston College team, whether they're good or not. But again, I think Boston College is going to be a pretty solid team. Their schedule is not that horrible. The second half of the year, they got some winnable games on that schedule they can definitely pull off. And I've been saying ever since the offseason began, I think this is a Boston College team that you probably don't want to play here in the month of November. I think this team will be pretty good once the month of November hits, and also when they get to the second half of the season as well. But I got Boston College as of right now here at number 14 in my preseason power rankings. Moving on to number 13, that's Wake Forest. Wake Forest was a disappointing season, disappointing team last year in 2023. Of course, I think the schedule really was a big part of that, and also just because of the loss to Sam Hartman and everything at quarterback. I think this year Wake Forest turned things around. I think they have a chance to make it to a bowl game at best. I don't know if they can probably, be a contender and also a dark horse in the ACC, but they'll be right around 6, 7, 8 wins, somewhere in that range. Again, this is one of the more consistent teams in this conference. Again, I think the Demon Deacons do turn things around this season in 2024 and probably makes it to a bowl game. The offense, I think, will be the strength of this team, but the defense is obviously a big concern. The defense usually is not really good for Wake Forest, so that's really going to come down to that defense in order for Wake Forest to be a pretty good team this year, and maybe also be a dark horse team in the ACC as well. They do have a tough non-conference game against Ole Miss in the month of September. If they somehow can pull off a huge upset in that game, I think Wake Forest goes on to have a pretty good year, but if they don't probably win that game and also do not compete, I think it's going to be really a tough year for them. But if they somehow compete a little bit, I think Wake Forest probably makes it to a bowl game. But I got this team turning things around this year. I have them going to a bowl game according to my prediction. So I got Wake Forest here at number 13. Number 12 is going to be California. Cal comes over from the Pac-12 as well, just like Stanford, a newcomer coming up, of course, in this conference. I think Cal is going to be pretty solid. I think the offense will be pretty good for them. I don't think they're going to be a really explosive offense. They'll be just really solid on that side of the football. Then you look at the defense. That's where the concern comes from here for Cal. They lost quite a bit of production there on that side of the football from last year, but in the second half of the year, I think the defense might get a little bit better, and this team can still go to a bowl game. I don't think this is a team that's going to be a dark horse, though, in this conference, but you look at their schedule. It's pretty tough in the first half of the year. They got to play Auburn out of the non-conference, and they have to go on the road to play Jordan-Hare Stadium. That'll be very tough for this California team, but I got them there sitting in the middle of the pack here in the ACC. I think they'll be right around, a team that could be consistent in the future of this conference. They'll be right there around 6, 7, 8 wins, somewhere in that range. But as of right now, the offense will be the strength for this California team, and then defensively, that's where the big concern is. But we'll see what this California team looks like starting next week. But we'll see how good they're going to be once they play Auburn in week number 2. But I got this Cal team at number 12. Moving on to number 11, they play tomorrow, and that's Georgia Tech. We're going to see what this Georgia Tech team looks like tomorrow when they play Florida State in Dublin, Ireland. Georgia Tech's coming off a pretty big surprising season last year. Can they come out of nowhere and be like a dark horse team in the ACC? I don't really think so. I don't think Georgia Tech is really close to being like a dark horse team in the ACC, but it seems like this program is now heading back in the right direction. Haynes King is back at quarterback. We'll see how good he is going to be tomorrow. when he plays against that Florida State defense, which will obviously be very tough to go up against and everything. The defense, though, is what I'm concerned about for Georgia Tech. They lost quite a bit of production there from last year, so the defense might be a little bit slow in the first half of the year, but the second half of the year might be a little bit better. But again, if Georgia Tech can make it to a bowl game with a very, very tough schedule, again, this program is heading in the right direction, but if it's a disappointing year again, I think Georgia Tech is now back at the bottom of this conference. But again, we'll see what they look like tomorrow going into the game against Florida State. Again, that game is going to be in Dublin, Ireland tomorrow, so we'll see what this Georgia Tech team looks like and see how good Haynes King has gotten better and everything. So Georgia Tech here at number 11. Let's now go to the top 10 here. I got Pittsburgh at number 10. I don't know why a lot of people are not really high on this Pittsburgh team. I'm not really that high on them to be like a dark horse contender in this conference, but I think Pittsburgh's going to turn things around this year. Just like Wake Forest, they're one of the more consistent teams in this conference. I do expect the Panthers to be right there around 6, 7, 8 wins, somewhere in that range. Again, this team has plenty of playmakers on the roster. They don't have a lot of talent on the roster. I know last year was a very disappointing year, going just 3-9 overall, but again, I think Pittsburgh is going to turn things around this season. I know they have a tough non-conference schedule with West Virginia and Cincinnati, two teams that they lost last year. And I think after losing those two games last season, I think that just told us that Pittsburgh was not going to be really good. This year they get Cincinnati on the road, and they also get West Virginia at home. So again, if they can win at least one out of those two games, or maybe win both of them, I think Pittsburgh goes on to have a pretty good year. But again, one out of the two, they can still go to a bowl game. So I got Pittsburgh here at number 10. Number 9 is NC State. These teams that you're seeing now from like 6 through 9, I think these are your dark horse teams in this conference. We'll start with NC State. I think they're a dark horse in the ACC like they always are every year. But just like Pittsburgh and also Wake Forest, this is one of the more consistent teams in this conference as well. I think they're going to be pretty solid on both sides of the football. They do have a pretty tough schedule, but I think either way, NC State will be right there around 6, 7, 8 wins, somewhere in that range. And again, that's all I can talk about for the Wolfpack. Again, they'll be pretty solid, but they also have a pretty tough non-conference game against Tennessee. Of course, that game will be in Charlotte in week number 2. That'll be the first kind of real competition here for the Wolfpack, going up against a hurry-up tempo Tennessee offense. I mean, how good can that defense stop that Tennessee offense from scoring a lot of points? And again, we'll find out in a couple weeks when they play in that game. So NC State here at number 9. Number 8 is going to be Syracuse. I think Syracuse is a big dark horse team in the ACC this year. This team has a lot of production coming back. They also brought in some transfers over to help them out. I mean, offensively, you got Kyle McCord coming in, the transfer quarterback from Ohio State. Of course, started 12 games there last year. We'll see how good he's going to be for this Syracuse offense. I think the offense will be pretty decent here for the Orange, but the defense, they lose quite a bit there from last year, but I think overall this Syracuse team should be pretty solid on both sides of the football. So I got Syracuse as a dark horse team in the ACC this year for 2024. Number 7 is SMU, another newcomer coming over from the Group of 5 level this time. They come over after winning the American Conference Championship game last year. I think SMU is going to be pretty good. They have a good amount of production coming back on both sides of the football, and they got plenty of playmakers here on this roster that are ready to play at the Power 4 level and definitely compete in this conference as well. Again, I think the Mustangs are definitely a deep dark horse team in the ACC. I have this team going 9-3 in their first year in this conference and also their first year as a Power 4 team. So again, watch out here for SMU. They have plenty of talent on this roster, and they're also a really well-coached team as well. So I got SMU here at number 7. Number 6 is North Carolina. North Carolina comes in at number 6. They're obviously a dark horse team, almost seems like every year in this conference. The Tar Heels, I think, will be pretty good on the offense. I mean, that definitely will be the strength of this team. The defense, though, I think it's going to really come down to them. Plus, you got a new quarterback. Drake May, of course, is now gone. We'll see what this North Carolina team looks like going into next Thursday night. They do play Minnesota on the road to start out the year. That'll be a very tough game to kick off the season, but I think North Carolina's got a chance to win it, so we'll see what happens there. But I got this North Carolina team at number 6. Let's go to the top 5 now. That's Virginia Tech. I forgot to mention, 5 through 9 9 is what I meant by the dark horse teams in the ACC. I think this is the top dark horse in this conference. Virginia Tech at number 5, a lot of experience coming back on both sides of the football. You got your starting quarterback returning from last year, which was really good. Again, Virginia Tech has the most production, not coming back just in the ACC, but they have the most returning production coming back in the country. And again, I think this team is going to be really, really good. I am very high on this team. I think this is the most underrated team heading into 2024. And I got this team going 10-2 in my prediction, so I'm just really that high here on this Virginia Tech team. And again, I think they probably will be right around as a dark horse team, but if they can go on to have a really, really good season, this team could be probably into the ACC championship as well. So again, watch out here for Virginia Tech. I think this is also a top 25 team as well. And again, I think they'll be right there close to those top contenders in the conference as well. So I got Virginia Tech here at number 5. Then we move on to the top 4 teams. I think these are your top contenders in the ACC for this season as of right now. You got Louisville here at number 4. Louisville did a pretty nice job last year. Jeff Brom did a pretty nice job in his first year, leading Louisville to like 10 wins last season. Of course, they didn't really finish the season where they wanted to last year, but the Cardinals, I think, will be a little bit good this year. They don't really have like a talented roster like some of these other teams that you're going to see in just a minute, but this team did go to the ACC championship last year, so you have to give him some credit there. But Jeff Brom did a nice job in the transfer portal, got a really new good quarterback coming in. Tyler Shuck comes in from Texas Tech. We'll see how good he's going to be. The passing game definitely was a big struggle last year for the Cardinals. If they can improve that passing game a little bit of enough, I think this Louisville team is going to be really good this year in the passing game and also in the offense. No, it's not going to be a really explosive offense, but I think they'll be pretty decent on that side of the football. And the defense, I think, will be pretty solid for them as well. They got some transfers coming in to help them out. And they also got plenty of guys returning from last year as well on that side of the football. So I got the Cardinals here at number 4. Number 3 is Clemson. So Clemson comes in at number 3, a disappointing year for them last year. I think Clemson, is going to be right there among one of the top contenders in this conference once again. I mean, obviously you have to put the Tigers every single year as a top contender in this conference and also a playoff contender. But again, I think it comes down to the offense here for Clemson. That's really been a big struggle for this Clemson team for the last 3 years. They've had really a big struggle at quarterback play. Cade Klubnik, I think, is a very underrated quarterback. He has just not really shown it, ever since, of course, like a couple years ago when he played in that bowl game a couple years ago, and then, of course, last year was just a big struggle for him. Will he be good enough this year? I mean, it's kind of hard to tell as of right now because we have not seen Clemson play yet, but we'll see what they look like against Georgia. Again, they kick off against Georgia next weekend. That'll be a big-time game at noon Eastern time. If Clemson can, somehow compete with Georgia, maybe for a half or two, or maybe for like 3 quarters, I think Clemson definitely has a chance to make it to the ACC championship. But if they don't compete at least against Georgia, maybe for not just a half or two, and Clemson might have another disappointing year. But I got Clemson here at number 3 as of right now to my power rankings. Then we got Miami here at number 2. It was really tough to pick Miami or Clemson as my number 2 team, but I decided to go with Miami here. Miami's got a lot of talent on this roster as well. Plenty of guys coming in from the transfer portal. Mario Cristobal did a really nice job in the offseason. Got a new quarterback in Cam Ward. We'll see how good he's going to be starting next weekend. They head on the road to play at the Swamp at Florida. I got Florida winning that game. I think Miami might be the favorite going into that game because they might be the better team than Florida is, but playing on the road at the Swamp, that'll be a very tough game to kick off the season. But I don't really think it comes down to the roster for Miami. I think it really comes down to the coaching staff. Again, we've seen some inconsistency from Miami and Mario Cristobal for the last couple years. Of course, 5-7 in his first year, and then last year just 7-6. It was kind of a disappointing year last year, and they were inconsistent on and off the field sometimes. One game they would be consistently good, and then one game they were not really consistent. So can Miami finally live up to those expectations and probably find a way to sneak into the ACC championship? And who knows, maybe make it into the college football playoff. But I got this team at number 2. And then number 1, you know who that is already, and that's Florida State at number 1. They've been my preseason, or actually my number 1 power ranking team. They've been number 1 in my power rankings ever since the month of January. Of course, we'll see Florida State play tomorrow. Again, I'm going to be play-by-play broadcasting the Georgia Tech versus Florida State game tomorrow afternoon and everything, so make sure to join the live stream there tomorrow. But looking at this Florida State State team, we'll see what DJ Uiagalelei looks like tomorrow. We'll see how good he's going to be on the offensive system for Florida State. No, he won't be as good as Jordan Travis was for the last couple years here for the Seminoles, but will he finally live up to those expectations? You know, it's been a really big struggle in his college career. Did not live up to those expectations at Clemson when he was supposed to be the next Trevor Lawrence, and did not live up to his expectations last year at Oregon State. Of course, he has to prove that this year, so the offense might be a concern for Florida State. It won't be as good of an offense that we saw from last year, but we'll see what it looks like tomorrow. You know, obviously it's going to be really kind of, hard to tell what these teams are going to look like early in the season, but again, we will see what Florida State looks like tomorrow as of right now against another ACC team in Georgia Tech. Again, that's the big ACC game coming up for you tomorrow, and overall the defense should be pretty good, but overall Florida State has a lot of talent on this roster. They brought in some playmakers from the transfer portal, and again, this team is still my favorite to win the conference, and again, I did predict them to go to the ACC championship, and then also to the college football playoff as well as my number 3 seed. So I got Florida State here at number 1, but those are my 2024 ACC football preseason power rankings for the 2024 college football season. Again, we got Florida State versus Georgia Tech coming up tomorrow, and again, that game I will be live by play-by-play broadcasting it tomorrow. Again, make sure to join the pregame at 11:45 a.m., and then at 12 o'clock is kickoff. So again, I will be doing a play-by-play broadcast of that game tomorrow. But again, those are my power rankings here for the ACC. So let me guys know what you think about these power rankings here for this conference. Give me your power rankings for this conference as well. And thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.